and all that nonsense. You
Right.
have like the good thick mustache.
But if you recall, because you were there at its inception, it did
Yeah.
not start this way. It
No, it
needed
started. Yeah, it
it.
started
Yeah.
one way. Now you're full grown. It's almost like a Pokemon evolved.
This is a Charmander, is what you're saying, or Charizard. This is a Charizard.
I mean, it looks fair, man. How you been? You all right?
I'm all right, man. How are you? How's PDX?
It's going all right. We had Lavelle Crawford here this weekend, and his manager stopped talking to me after Saturday because I didn't
Oh.
join his pyramid scheme. It was one of the weirdest interactions I've ever had because he was so nice to me, and they just thought I was the DJ, and then they found out, oh, you're the general manager, so it was like, oh, cool.
That's hilarious. They
And
thought
then
I
he
was
tried to
the
sell me on some
DJ.
like you're selling life insurance, uh, but you get people under you selling life insurance, and then you're making generational wealth, and I was like, nah. And then he stoned me the rest of the weekend.
I mean, in his defense, you are also the DJ. You you are not only the DJ, but you are the DJ there, right?
I'm the one. Well, anyone can do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not that DJ is a job that it's amazing that it even exists anymore.
Well, so the fact that there's DJs at comedy clubs to me is dumb.
Right.
It would be the easiest thing in the world because you're not necessarily, hey, let's groove, let's have a good time, everyone stand up. You're just playing background music and then every once in a
Exactly.
while doing a sound cue.
No, I'm doing a one-nighter in Santa Rosa, and the guy, like, we were like going back and forth on money and stuff. And he's like, "Well, I have a DJ, there, before you." And I'm like, "For what? What are they doing? I don't." Because if it's if it's an actual DJ, then that's going to be bad for comedy. Like,
Right, because it's
that's
like,
that,
everyone stand up. Yeah, you're mixing it and then
now
you're like, oh,
sit
no, I'll
down.
pay attention. Yeah.
Everybody, get your hands up. Now sit down and put your hands down and do everything opposite of what we just told you to do.
Right, like, please just sit down, be quiet. We're going to do it this way. Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I think people try to make it more of a production in that aspect than it actually is. If you just put on a Fleetwood Mac CD and seat people, no
Yeah.
one knows the difference.
I mean, it depends. I mean, with Rumors, sure. It depends on which Fleetwood Mac album. I like that you
What?
said CD too.
Because I mean, it's honestly I've tried this. So I've done a new playlist every night for 6 years or something like that.
Okay.
And I've tried doing things where I'm like, all right, I'm gonna play music that sucks, and I'll play music that's good, and I'll try almost like working out a set. I'll work out a playlist that
Yeah.
weekend, and it doesn't matter what you play. If let's say Bill Bellamy's here, and I go all country, people will kind of be like, that's weird, but nobody gives a fuck. The
Nobody
show
cares.
still runs just the sound.
Yeah. Yeah, it does not matter. I mean, as long as it's like somewhat upbeat. Like if you're playing like wind chimes, that's not ideal. Or you're just doing like all just like acoustic sad songs. That's
Right.
not gonna, I mean, and really it'll be fine. It's just gonna take the host a little longer to get them.
Yeah, because I've accidentally played, because we do the where shows in 1 minute, and then I'll just put up the next song, and sometimes it's been like Enya or some shit like that.
Yeah.
And then the host has to come out and be like, cool, thanks for the music. And right away, the crowd's like, oh, here we go. All right.
Perfect. Easy.
How many one-nighters are you doing now? Is that all you're doing?
Well, I mean, I would do more if clubs offered me more. Thank you for that reminder of where I'm at in my career.
My fault. No, man,
How come you're not getting weekends, my
yeah,
man?
what's really happening?
That's I'm what the biz likes to call a one-nighter and a holiday weekend headliner.
Yeah.
And I'm also what some clubs like. I'm like a we just had Russell Peters recovery headliner. Like we just gave 100% of the door away, and so now we need to give a guy who can do the job but is going to sell a one-nighter's worth of tickets. So I'm doing a lot, yeah. And I kind of got connected with Helium through because I did my special and then my album came out with Helium Records, and so it kind of been the in there, and got lots of them coming up. A summer, I think I have one full weekend out in DC, but in some ways it doesn't, it's all the same. It's this business is all about like taking that next calculated risk.
Right.
Of going like, could I comfortably ride the open for Taylor Tomlinson and Nate Bargatze train for a while? Sure could. But at a certain point, you got to go, all right, like, let's see if I can move the tickets and start, kind of establishing myself in that. Not just from doing the headlining work, because I've done that, but as far as like getting into, the ticketed market. Like Taylor is going out, on a pretty big, I don't know if this is public information. I think it is. Let's just say I didn't say Taylor, but she's going to be doing a theater tour eventually. But that's the same thing as me, as just a calculated risk. You go like, all right, well, I could make more money, or I could have a very embarrassing public flop and make less money. But if I never make that risk, if I never take that chance, I'm not going to progress in the career. It's like when a business takes its profit and invest it in itself. Same idea.
Well, you're in one of my favorite positions as a comic because, like you said, you are right there on the cusp of like starting to work weekends, but you're like out featuring. I would say probably overqualified to feature for these people. So like people like in your area or your level, when they come out to clubs, I haven't met a bad person yet. So even if it's just like a one night off or, hey, I know what time it is, I'm doing this weekend because, you just had Dave Chappelle and you need something.
Right.
But you're in this really cool area where and I don't want to put you down, but like you're grateful. You're like, this is fun, this is cool. As opposed to someone who already's been up there and they're coming back down and they're in the same level as you are and they're fucking awful.
Yeah, it's a cruel career because you never know when you're at your top. Oh. You never know when you need, and that's probably true of a lot of careers, but you never know when you just need to sit and kind of bask and be like, this is it, man. I'm selling out weekends, or I got a weekend, or I middled, or I'm on a theater tour. Because even when you get into theaters, well, now there's bigger theaters, and now they're selling out the theaters, and then there's arenas. So you never know when you're at your top, but nobody hits their top at the end, right. So you get to that top, and then you just start to slowly decline. And so it's a bummer it's so much more fun on the upswing because it's more exciting, but like, I mean, take whoever, I don't know, take Don Rickles. Don Rickles didn't know when he had peaked. Somebody said that if Don Rickles died the way every comedian wants to die, with dates on the calendar. Like that's all you can ask for as a comic, is to get to do this professionally your whole life. That's I think the most you should ask for. And that kind of keeps you as far as a gratefulness goes,
Yeah. Well, I met you opening for Charlie.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, he's kind of like a more YouTube person than stand-up, right? Like he got his real wave off of doing this Midwest stuff.
Yeah.
And then you open up for Taylor, who is getting more and more like huge people. What is it like for you to open for these people who have huge followings, right? Like you're not coming out and opening for even Bargatze, who's been hilarious for a long time, now is having these followings where it's like, ladies and gentlemen, Dustin Nickerson, and like, fuck, bring out the person. Right? Like you don't get to open up for these, just normal run comics. What is that like for you to open up for these people?
It's, Seinfeld talks about the best feeling in comedy is is a crowd that didn't know you finding out that you're funny.
Right.
And that's what it's like when it goes well. There is a, you know, I think with a Charlie, like with a YouTube type, like, and Charlie does stand up, but Charlie's known for his videos.
Right.
People walk into that club and they have no idea that there's going to be an opener. They don't know what the show is. They have no concept. With Taylor and Nate, I mean, they know that, you know, if they follow Taylor's career, they know that there's openers. They know that she used to open for Brian Regan. They know that Nate opened for Rock and Burr and Marin. Like they're familiar with the concept of a show. Charlie's is much more like, hey, you know, I didn't know there was going to be an opener either. Stuff like that, you know. But there is like, what you have the opportunity to be is the very pleasant surprise of the show. It's like years ago, I think the very first comedy show I went to was at the University of Washington, where I went to school. And then, and it was to see Mike Birbiglia.
Oh.
And the opener was John Mulaney. And I should have never gone to another comedy show after that, you know. And but I walked away, and I followed Mulaney's next step of his career every step of the way, because I was like, you can become a fan of the opener. It's like years ago too, I saw me and my wife went and saw the Counting Crows, which is a dated reference, and the opener was this band Augustana, and it was right before that song Boston hit, and you're like, sometimes you really, when the opener is great, you're like, well, that was a pleasant surprise, because I assumed this was going to be trash. You know? Right. So I like it in that sense, you know, but there is always a group of people there who just, you could be Dave Chappelle level of talent, and they just don't care because they're there for Taylor Thomason or Charlie Berens or Nate Bargatze, whoever it may be.
See, but I'll say with those people, I don't think they even have fun when the headliner comes on, like, because you're in a weird locked in mode where you're like, yeah, whatever, I want to, and then the headliner comes on, you're like, finally, and then they start telling jokes and you're not satisfied. So I think those people come in open minded, like, hey, I just want to see a show, or hey, we'll see what happens. And people like you were coming up, and it's not like you're a dud. So you're like, okay, this is fun, let's have a good time. Those people are way better. The more I'm in it, the more I'm starting to hate people who just want to be here for maybe the photo after the show, or I'm just here because my wife wants to be here, or I saw you on TV and I need to go out. I'm starting to hate those people. It
is really an interesting, like crowd psychology is the most interesting thing in the world to me, because, you know, what are you guys at full capacity? 250?
275 when we're full.
275. So let's say on my headlining night, it'll be about 125. That's 100.
That's because we'll probably be at 125 capacity, for the record.
Gosh. In September? Oh, man, I hope. I know. Have I moved any tickets for Portland? I think I've moved a couple. It's a long ways away. Yeah. Anyways, let's say it's 200 people, and you think in your mind that it's like 200 people who are excited to bought a ticket and are fans of comedy and are here to see a comedy show. And then you realize that's like 25% of the crowd, because another 25% got brought by the person who's excited. And another 25% got tickets because it's their birthday month. And then there's that mix of the couple who got in a fight on the way there, who's going through some, you know, you'll have people come up and they're like, oh man, I really needed to laugh, you know, like my dog died on the way here. And you're like, what the, like, it's just like, you just never know what's going on in people's lives. And then the weirdness of a crowd can happen. You know, last night we were doing one of those low key shows and here in San Diego, and, you know, the front row was, hey, we're at 30 in Portland. Thanks, Jerry.
Dude, that's amazing.
That's pretty far out to be at 30.
Yeah.
Oh man, add a second show, Jerry. So I'm gonna have a residency in Portland. That's pretty far away to be at 30. I feel pretty good about that. And plus, I've got Northwest Love behind me right now. I mean, Prehistoric Gardens. I mean, that's an Oregon staple right there. But anyway, so we at the crowd, there's just one guy in the front row who decides the show's about him, and just does all the stuff. Like he's doing gestures, like he's putting his arms around both the girls next to him, like trying to solicit a response.
Right.
And you're like, okay, well now that changed this whole crowd psychology as well. There's a ton of going like to your point, you're like, you just get more and more frustrated that you want them all to be that 25%, which is just like excited puppies.
Yeah. One, that line is so razor thin. So this weekend we had like a good example. We had one guy who was kind of like talking, but not really like engaged in the show. So
Right.
they'd be like, hey, Lavelle, is coming in about 10 minutes. Oh, I'll make it 9, right? Like he was excited, but it was kind of about him. And then we had another
Right.
guy who was standing up and punching the air when Lavelle told jokes and was like, ah! And it was very obvious, but it wasn't about him. It was about, I'm loving the show.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that
yeah.
translated to the people around him, and then everyone was like, it was the best show of the weekend. And I don't want to say it's because of him, but because it was almost, I'm just having a great time and I can't control myself.
Yeah.
As opposed to, I'm here, I'm wooing, I want to be noticed.
The most recent clip that I put on YouTube, and it's the biggest clip I've ever had. I've had a clip doing pretty well for the first time ever on YouTube, which is great. YouTube's a weird one to crack. You're just kind of a slave to the algorithm. And it's a show that I did with Kev on stage, and I'm not the only white comic on the show. I'm the only white person there, and I just kind of riff a bit on that, and I make fun of the fact that Jonathan Slocum, who's like a legend in comedy, didn't know I was on the show and just referred to me as the random white guy in the crowd. It was all it's fun stuff. And then I have a decent amount of stuff where I talk about race, and that can be like, for a black crowd, they're like, this is not patronizing, and this like what, but when you watch the clip, you'll know there is one girl there who cannot keep her laugh under control, and it's so infectious that it makes the clip. Like when people, if you read the comments, half of them are about the laugh, because it's like you said, because to laugh at something is to be very vulnerable. Like it's almost like being in church and saying amen, where you're kind of agreeing with what they're saying. And so when someone goes so big, then everybody else feels comfortable doing it, because you don't want to be the only one at a comedy club laughing.
No, like that one person will be like, hey, anybody married? And it's like,
oh, dang it, now he's gonna talk to me. Yeah. It's why crowds get tight, because it didn't get established early that like we're all laughing big together, and that's how they can stay tight the whole night, because they just like, it's like this unspoken thing where they go like, oh no, we laugh at this level tonight.
Yeah, maybe get with it, it's fine.
Exactly.
We're having a good time.
Yeah, thus alcohol. But alcohol's alcohol is the slippery slope when it comes to comedy crowds.
It honestly is one drink away from falling apart. It's the weirdest thing to have involved. I mean, it's great to make money off it, but yeah, it is. I don't think I'd want to work at a place that was like, we're not selling drinks. Right. Yeah, that would be like a bad comedy club. But then there's that, I took one sip more and now I'm fucking gone.
Yeah. I always use the analogy that like dealing with drunks, hecklers or in the crowd or whatever it may be, is like moving a mattress. Like even when you got it, like you could lose it at any point. You never feel good about your grip on a mattress. And that's what drunks are. You can be crushing with a drunk heckler, but at any time, because they lose all their social cues, right? So they're just like, they're just like, you can be like, shut up, and they don't get any of it. Have you heard Moses Storm's bit about the drunk heckler at the drive-in show?
I don't know if he did it when he was here.
I think it's new. It's so funny.
Oh, no, he did. And he's talking about how do you kick him out then, because it's like, hey, drive away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, got a drunk heckler. It's like, okay, well, I guess you just got to go drive home. It's hilarious.
Yeah, that's those drunk people. I mean, they've never made a show better. Like,
In
even
their
when
minds, they did.
yeah, I mean, even when you're like, someone's using him throughout the whole show and they're kind of weaving them in, like, hey, drunk idiot, you remember that I said, it
Yeah.
never makes the show better. And I
No.
would venture that it has never had anywhere.
No. Because they reach a point, and this is why you're grateful to like work good clubs, because you reach a point where they have to go. Because the show has become too much about them and too centered around them, that because that comic has to keep dealing with them because they're talking or they're yelling or their rhythm is off, and whatever it may be, that you go like, listen, if you can't shut up, you have to go. And then you work these other clubs that you're just like, I mean, there's one here that in San Diego that we always make fun of, because like they will go silence a drunk heckler, but also bring them a drink as they do it. Hey, shh, be quiet.
Right,
So
keep drinking this.
I remember the first time I worked the Hollywood Improv. It was the first time I had ever worked in a club, and I remember there was a heckler, and they swarmed on that heckler so fast that I was like, oh, this is why you want to work good clubs. You're not up there by yourself.
Well, because I think for most people who work A rooms, you have a pride about it, and like you can't let that slip to be like a B or a C room. So you have this thing where you're like, we are shutting this shit down, and
Right.
people who feel like that want to work at A clubs. Like if I worked at a club that didn't give a fuck about heckling, I'd blow my head off. I'd go crazy because I'm the only person like, shut up.
Right. Well, because you want someone who takes pride in their club, and you want someone, and you will attract better acts for it. There's no doubt about that. I remember when I was at the Helium in Philly, I was opening, and someone was telling me how Attell refuses to play anywhere else in Philly, because of that. And it's like, no, this is a good club. It's a perfect, and the room is great, but there's a certain, just like, you can get a loyalty from a big act. Like, and Attell's a guy that you want to always play your clubs, and I mean, this is hearsay. That could have just been the manager being like, like, Attell won't work anywhere else.
Told me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But there is no doubt that you want, you want to take some pride in that, because then you like train your audience to be that way too. When you open a new club, like, Adam Norwest, he runs a bunch of clubs up there in the Northwest. And then when you open a club, like he opened Bricktown, and him and I were texting in Oklahoma City. He's like, this room is great. I'm still training these audiences. They're like a dog, I need you guys to learn discipline.
I started here when Helium had been around for about 6-7 months. So I missed the first 6 to 7 months. But it was 3 years of fuck y'all, I'm never coming back, or fuck you, I'm going to Harvey's. And you're like, cool, don't come back. Because then what happens is when new people come in, the 80% of the crowd's already trained. So when they start doing anything, they're like, oh, this isn't how we're supposed to behave.
Yeah, it's like an assembly. Like a school assembly. Oh, they're going to get in trouble. Hey, there are times that we get excited, but she's got the quiet coyote right now, so we need to listen.
Right, yeah, and then people are like looking at him crooked and like, yo, and nothing makes me happier than to see an audience member be like, shh.
Oh, yeah.
That's a person I'll get another drink to or something, like, hey, way to do it.
Because you love when they start self-policing. I love when the table does it to someone at their own table. Like when they're like, I'm so sorry. You've seen that, because we've all been with your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your mom or your sister or a friend who gets just too hammered in public, and you're like, I'm sorry. Like you love when they start policing, like, shh. And then you're less likely as a comic to like go in, because you're like, they're working it out themselves.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, this job has changed me to where I'm the person, if I'm at a movie with a friend and they pull their phone out, I'm like, hitting them. Like, stop.
What about
There'll be
during
one
the
other person in the movie theater, but I'm like, knock it off. That's not how we act.
No. I will say though, like when MoviePass was going strong, one of my favorite things to do would be to go watch a movie for like the third or fourth time in the way back row and be on my phone during the movie. It's pretty. I don't know why. It was kind of I was just like, no. I know what's going to happen in the movie. I'm not distracting anybody, and I didn't pay for the ticket, so I'm just going to be way back here with my feet up. What's your? Are you allowed to have your phone out during previews, or is it as soon as the previews hit, you got to put
So
that
for
thing
me, I'll let the previews run, but once the movie starts,
yeah,
if you want to use your phone, you got to go out.
yeah. And will you shush a stranger
Yeah.
outside of your job?
I won't even shush. I'll be like, hey, can you stop talking? Like, it's almost like when, like all the movie cliches where a guy comes back for more and then someone touches his wife's ass and he breaks their nose and go to prison. Like, I can't control how I respond to people going outside the lines at a live event. So if someone is talking or if someone's kind of, I'll get and be like, hey, please just stop talking.
Right.
It usually doesn't go great, but
it sounds like that's what dads do. They just like kind of like in their non-yelling moments, they're like, they're almost like it's like the I'm disappointed in you talk.
Like, really?
But here's why I don't. I am so emotional. Like I so need people to love me that I don't like people being mad at me. So I feel like if I shush a person, I told someone to get off their phone one time at a movie, and it was the Green Lantern premiere, which in hindsight, you should have been on your phone. Yeah. But I was so tense after that moment. Like I couldn't have enjoyed the movie anymore anyways, because it was garbage. But I just get so worried that this person's mad at me. And then that I can't enjoy the movie. But you can shush somebody and shut them up and then just feel good about yourself and enjoy the movie.
Yeah, well, so it's a weird thing, and it's for teaching like ushers here, it's probably the hardest thing you have to learn, where you're like, this isn't personal. I don't care. I don't even care. I just have to tell you this because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
So once I say that, we'll move on. So like if someone is drunk, I don't want to say I almost pity them, but I'm like, hey, bud, that's not how we're doing things.
Yeah.
Let's leave it at that. And then if it becomes like well, fuck you, I don't take it as like an assault on me. You're just mad at the rules.
Right.
You're mad that I'm having to tell you, you did something wrong. And so it's almost like they get embarrassed and they're lashing out. They don't give a fuck about me.
Man, it is so like that's just a good life lesson, Nick, that it's never about you, it's always about them. Right? When people are lash out, they always got their own stuff going on. Everything you do is just about you and whatever stuff you got going on, So you're right. Like, first off, why did they even feel the need to get hammered at a comedy show? That's not
I'll
even.
never get that. Yeah.
That's not. I mean, our whole thing. You would never get hammered at a movie.
I like get hammered at anything I paid money to see. I go get hammered at a barbecue where I show up for free.
I will say that I like a good buzz at a concert. I will say that music is enhanced, but music is it's way more experiential than comedy. Comedy, you gotta listen. Like you have to pay attention. Like there's irony and wordplay and callbacks. Like I'm gonna say something at minute 32 that related to minute 8. Like this is better, if you pay attention. But then again, we are serving the alcohol, so we can't get that mad.
Well, I think it's just 1 or 2 drinks. We're adults. 3 or 4, okay. But when people start taking, like I'm starting to hate this too. A table gets shots, and then they cheers.
Oh, in the middle of that.
Yeah, I'm like, this isn't for you. Like you fucked up, you made a mistake, you came to the comedy club, that's fine. But it's like, I almost think about grown people with, a couple grays in their hair or something.
Right.
That you're like, we are here to laugh and have a good time, have a couple of adult beverages. We're not trying to get fucked up in cheers.
No, I would be okay with no shots in comedy clubs because shots are like social, right? Like nobody like shots are all the wrong energy for comedy. It's meant to get you drunk fast. It's party. It's that's all wrong for comedy. Like a nice like a drink that you like wine and beer. Like you know how the airlines are just serving wine and beer right now. You're like take something that takes you a minute. Like that would be funny if comedy clubs had like certain ones that like you've like no Long Island iced teas. All right, nobody. that's never put that's never put a table in a good spot.
And usually they're not getting one.
No, no, no,
It's
no.
usually it's two.
Yeah, which is like 12 shots of
Right, where you're like,
alcohol.
I'm here to fucking get it in. Where you're like, what is? I mean, so I get why a lot of theaters they only do the beer and alcohol or the beer and wine because
Yeah,
like let's just let's have maybe a glass of wine to
yeah,
relax. We're here to
yeah.
enjoy.
Yeah, it's about beer and wine are it's a sprint versus a marathon is what it is. Like no, you know?
We're here for an hour and a half. Let's relax.
Exactly. Yeah. When you have a glass of wine or a beer, but it's almost like alcohol it starts as a downer. I mean, it's gonna get you up eventually, but if I have two IPAs, I don't want a third. I'm already burping and I'm kind of full. If anything, I'm getting sleepy.
Right. Yeah, but you have 3 shots. You're like, give me 4.
Yeah, we always say in comedy too that you never want to be their second activity of the night.
Right.
You want to be their only activity of the night. The best comedy crowd, they go like, Nick, what are you doing Friday? You're like, I'm going to see a comedy show. That's it. Not like we're going out. First, we're going to get dinner. Then we're going to go to a show. And then we're going to go to a club. And like all of that's bad. That show is going to be a train wreck.
See, I agree, but I think I'd rather be in the like last than in the middle. Because the people who are like, or even the first, because the people like, we're going to go to a comedy show, then we're going to Jim's bachelor party or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Those are people who are like, we're getting fucking drunk at this comedy show.
Yeah, that's
going
true.
to another location.
I guess it's the difference of either them getting drunk there or being drunk when they get there.
Showing up, wasted.
That's the problem of the Friday Late Show. It's the classic, I already worked today, and I didn't have to be at this show until 10, and so we definitely had a few drinks before then. So it's not only are we drunk, we're tired drunk, which is awful. Because tired drunks just sit there at the table and they just talk to each other at volume like this. They, they're not high. A tired drunk is like, oh man, no, this is good. Yeah, I wonder how much longer it is. Should we get an Uber? Or
Yeah, we're not even paying attention.
This is cathartic for me.
Well, those are the harder crowds to even, I don't want to say corral, deal with, because mostly they have been at work and they're like, fuck it, it's the weekend. So when you're like, hey, can you put your phone away? Like, are you my fucking boss? I had to deal with him all week. Now it's really weird how Friday lates are just the worst in all aspects.
Yeah. And you just tell them, I'm not your boss, I'm the DJ. And it's important to me as this venue's DJ.
Yeah, I gotta play CC, Music Factory in 30 minutes.
Yes.
I need the room to be, chilled out when I play that.
The Comedy Underground does that. At least they used to the last time I played it. They turn into a nightclub after the late show. And you're not even, what would you expect? It's Pioneer Square. It's a sketchy, like nightclub at that too. But what was that room that got shut down? When you're at venues that are multiple things, that's an issue too. Like the Parlor in Bellevue before they just disappeared in the middle of the night. They were like, we were talking about how, you'd go out and you'd do multiple things.
Right.
People would do it all at that venue.
Oh, hell no.
Because it was a bowling alley, or it was right next to a bowling alley, but like one of those like high-end bowling alleys, but they were also like billiards and a bar. And like, I remember one time I was middling for Dove Davidoff and we walked out, and I was like, gosh, what is that noise? It is so loud in here. And like the next door over was like a Nirvana cover band. I was like, so you just chose the loudest music in history. You know?
Well, not like I get it. You're trying to make money. You're a business.
Yeah.
Just get rid of comedy.
Just get rid of comedy. Thank you.
Like
Thank you.
have not to shit on them, but have like YouTube people or somebody who's like there to like, hey everyone, let's show videos and let's have a good time. But to seriously expect people to sit down and listen and be respectful and responsive is irresponsible of the business owner.
Yeah, I mean, you're pretty much putting a comic up at a strip club at that point. You're like, hey man, we're not really here for this. You know, like that's not the right vibe for this environment.
So introduction. Thank you for listening to Center Stage. Go get your merch. Listen to the other podcast. Do the albums and stuff. We're here with one of my favorite people who I wish I've hung out with more, Dustin Nickerson. You can listen to and watch his special Overwhelmed on Amazon. And then you have the podcast Don't Make Me Come Back there.
That's correct, yeah.
All right. So I guess I forgot to ask. Well, I don't guess. I know I forgot to ask. You've been to the Philly Helium. You've been to the Portland one. What other ones have you been to?
I think that's it. I think those are the only ones I've been to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
Where'd you record your album at?
I recorded my album outside in an alley in LA at Transit Pictures. Do you know Kev on stage? Kevin Fredericks?
I know who it is. Yeah, I've never met him though.
Yeah, so he produced it. So what it was is I did his show, Keep Your Distance Comedy, and that led at that space, and then that led to him producing with Transit Media my special there, and it's literally, I mean, it's Irene too, who you met. I tagged Irene in, and she finished the weekend with Taylor. She said of my special, she goes, it's not a COVID special, like it's not like COVID, huh? You know, but it is COVID aware. And when you watch it, you're like, oh, it's outside. People are wearing masks. It kind of tells you where it happened. So,
have you noticed the difference pre-COVID and post-COVID? Like, so I know visually you have more people in masks and stuff like that. But have you noticed the difference with the crowd and what they're willing to laugh at and go with?
Yes, I think that they are. Well, I feel like crowds are so grateful right now. Like, we're talking a lot about rowdy drunks, and that feels a little bit like the past to me because I haven't had a lot to deal with that. Like, it'll come back as people get more used to it, but people are rushing back to live entertainment because we were the first to go and we're the last to come back. And so there is like a gratefulness just to be out and to be inside and to be able to watch. I mean, comedy is one of those things that is just it's great when you watch an Amazon special, a Netflix special, but it's kind of like I like listening to the radio sometimes as opposed to or like a Spotify radio or something like that, just out of the pure spontaneity, like what might happen. Like I can watch a Netflix special over and over and I know what's going to happen each time. But the live show, there's a different energy, there's a spontaneity to it. So I have noticed that there has been like a gratefulness. And I do think that the tone of like, Roy Wood said this, a while back where he said all comedy before any material you wrote before Kobe died is irrelevant because if you think about when Kobe died, how much happened and how much the world changed and went through, and now I feel like we're leveling out. Like I feel like the tone has changed, and so I don't think that people like want to like laugh at COVID stuff anymore. I feel like even that's getting behind them. But there was a while there where you had to talk about it because if you weren't, if at least part of your session, if you weren't even acknowledging that, it's like, well, what are you talking about? How are you not talking about this people didn't want to hear political material. Like, how can you not say something about that right now? Even if it's not a hot take, you've got to talk about it in some way, right?
Right. Yeah, I'm
What have
interested.
you noticed?
Yeah, I'm interested to see when, because I've been seeing headliners, from back to weeks, months before that. I'm waiting to see the person who comes and doesn't bring it up at all, whether that be, political or
Right.
COVID or, the mess of other things we've had to deal with this year.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, hey, dating and, balls look weird and,
Right.
all that stuff. And I'm curious to when that'll happen.
I think it's soon. I bet you could get away with it this weekend and nobody would care, because I mean, a lot of it depends where you live, obviously, but I don't feel a need to do it anymore. Whereas before I felt like absolutely I have to address this stuff, all the stuff that's kind of, I mean, it's for goodness sakes. I remember when I was doing a show up here in Escondido in June of last year. And I was like, there's a protest outside of this, like a block over. Like, I have to talk about this.
We all walk to it to get to the room.
Yeah, but everything has been said about it. I don't know, like, particularly COVID in particular, and Trump. I think the Trump stuff is like done. Yeah. Like, I had, a couple bits that I was running. You can still talk about Biden, but I think, like, I wrote that. I was trying to come up with this bit last night with Taylor. We were at dinner and we were writing, and I told her, like, I want to do one last Trump bit because it's so funny to me. Well, I have two, but what saddens me is that Trump never got an Olympics, because I think that that would have been the time that everybody liked him. Because Trump is exactly who you want during the Olympics. Just bad-mouthing other countries, all their other athletes. Because the Olympics are the only time where everybody celebrates the failure of other countries.
Yeah.
It is like like, we're number one thing. And we are. Like, the U.S. dominates. And it would have been great to have him during that. I just think he'd have been so good on Twitter, just bad-mouthing all the... And you would have gotten behind it. Like, you could have been a bleeding heart liberal, and you would have been retweeting him bad-mouthing the Swedish swimmers, like...
like a tracksuit and shit. It would have been wild.
Oh, it would have been so good. But I was like, I don't know if you can do any more Trump stuff. Maybe you can't talk about what he did. Maybe I can still talk in the hypothetical with him, but I don't know. It's
you're right though. Like, even so, Trump has been a real divider, right? I don't think I'm not blowing anyone away by saying that. Well, it's been I'm going to bring up Trump, and either you're with me or against me, and no one is going to see kind of the gray in between it.
Right.
So I think now, if someone brings him up, it still has that same effect, but it almost has been bled dry to where you're like, what are you even going to say that's going to, get me? Right.
Yeah, you have to kind of talk about him. That's like, it's just like COVID. You're like, I don't know if it's almost like it has like some PTSD too. Because you're like, it's not even just a comedian saying, it's like, I've been fighting. It's like that bit I do about the Facebook fights. It's like, I've been fighting with people about this for years. I don't want to hear about this. I'm okay with you talking about issues. I'm not here for pure escapism, but there is a certain thing where you're like, okay, this topic is done. Where are you going to go from here?
Well, I mean,
and here I am trying to write 2 new Trump bits.
Like, for me, hearing resting blank face about a year and a half ago started to like piss me off, because like, I've heard this a million thousand times. Can we let it go?
Yeah, no. If I tweeted this a while back that I think Karen jokes are worse than Karens. Like, I'll take a Karen over a Karen joke any day of the week. Stop using that as a punchline. Right. It's not, so certain things you just go, all right, we've heard enough of this. But then somebody digs deep and finds a new angle, and you're like, I mean, I'll tell you, what sparked it was my son's in middle school, and he's doing the Presidential Fitness Award. You remember the Presidential Fitness Award? They still do that? Right, yeah. And it was like, but when I was a kid, you would get it from a president that was like kind of cool or in shape. Like getting that from Barack or George W., you're like, that's an athlete. And they're like, you know, like that guy, George W. threw like an 80-mile-per-hour fastball at a Rangers game. Barack is, you know, out balling all the time. And, you know, like this, it meant something. But getting it from like Trump or Biden, like a fitness award, I was like, that'd be getting like an Oscar from Shaq. You know, you're like, I don't think, so I think maybe we'll be able to talk about it in full post, like, remember that crazy time, as opposed to talking about what he was like as a person or his politics, or I don't know. You talk about the gray area, like you've seen my act, you watch a lot of them. I live in there. I really like to try and find, like, I like to like dance on the landmines, but not actually give you a take where people are like, did he say something or no? You know, like that's where, like I have this new bit that, man, if you talk about a bit that splits a crowd and nobody knows what to do with it, I have this new bit about being in the South and the Midwest and then making fun of you for wearing a mask, which this bit has 10 days before it expires, right? Because I sent it to exactly. I sent it to a friend of mine in Nashville. He's like, masks seem like an old news. I'm like, well, you know, other parts of the country are still wearing them, buddy. But he said the bit is like, you know, when you go there, they say like, you're living in fear, man. You're just living in fear, And I go, oh, really? What are all those guns for? Right, which is the part. Like you're like, yeah, exactly. You're just living in a different fear. And that's one of those jokes where crowds go like, like, what did he say something there? Or did he not say something? Or was he pro-gun or anti-gun? And I like to try and live in those spaces, but yeah, you'll lose if you lose half the crowd, sometimes you lose them all because they're like, everything gets real
But
tense.
I mean, there's good, I don't even say good, like close to great comics, I think are all in that gray where you're like, right? But so many, and maybe I'm saying this because I've watched open mics and stuff. So many people try to do it who are unskilled at it, and it is awful.
It's hard, man. I fail at it constantly. You know, you have an idea, and you're just like, okay, I think that, you know, I think that I've massaged this perfectly, so that I'm saying what I want to say. And it's kind of comes back to what we were talking about earlier of crowd psychology. Is sometimes you just hear certain buzzwords where you're like, "Ooh, I don't know about that." You know, like crowds just it's instinctive. They don't even think about it. It's definitely hard to do. And at an open mic, I mean, you're probably the 20th person in a row who's tried to do that, and you're bringing up the open mics are so hard because do crowds show up for your guys' open mic?
Yeah, I mean, we had 70 2 weeks ago.
Oh, that's not even an open mic. That's a show.
I mean, well, we're very lucky and blessed in Portland. Yeah, our mics are pretty good.
Yeah, no. If there's 70 people there and it didn't work, then yeah, that's on you. My open mic days were like, if we had 2 tables, we'd be thrilled. You know.
Well, so I'm asking you this because you have your album on Helium Records.
Yeah.
And I didn't know you recorded it in an alley, so this is going to change the question a little bit. But for you, what are things that make album recording perfect? Like, not necessarily during it, but I mean, leading up to it, kind of like after the day. Like, what makes that a great day or a perfect day for your album to get recorded?
Well, you know, I've only done the one, and so I can tell you, you know, I can only really speak of my experience for that one. You know, I would say ideally they're not in masks. But I had to put that material out. I didn't have any, I couldn't sit on it, you know. You know, it's psychologically, personally, you know, it's a very high pressure thing because you're like, this is documenting this bit forever. This is how people will remember this bit. Though I don't think that that's the case anymore. I think that used to be the case. I think that if you have
I think clips go out every week and stuff. I think.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be clips from your special either. It can be any clip. Like that YouTube clip that I put out. I mean, those are jokes that I wrote that week because about that show and stuff going on, and that has, as many views as my special. So I think that and they're jokes I'll never tell again,
Right.
So I think that has changed. As far as the day goes, are you saying just as far as like what your experience should be like as the comic, or
Yeah, it's
what?
the comic. Like for me, when like a perfect day. Let's say you're recording your album here. For me, it's probably waking up, going to the gym, getting something to eat, taking a nap, coming in. Like it's being at calm and at peace. Because then when I come in, if someone heckles while you're recording, I got to be sharp to be like, get that, choke them out and give
Right,
them
right,
fuck.
right. Yeah, I would say it would be having as like my ideal show. It would be my ideal show day, which puts me in the best headspace, which is slept well the night before, which is a real 50-50 with me, but hopefully you get the amount of rest you do. You ease into the day with some coffee. My favorite thing to do on the days that it allows is to just sit on my phone with coffee for about an hour, maybe a half an hour, getting into the day, coming
Yeah.
to work out, be outside, do something for as long as you can, get some food, and then I take a long time to get ready for the show. I don't have to. It's not like, but I space it out intentionally. Like I'll run the shower. I'll take a long shower, chill naked in the hotel room for a while. you know, as you're enjoying the evening coffee of the day. Get there, maybe have a drink pre-show just to kind of take the edge off. And then the post show come down is hard. Like, with the special or an album, it's very hard. Like, you're just like, did that go well? How is that going to turn out? It's not like a normal show where you just like, you're like, dude, I just crushed. I just had a great set. But every person I've ever talked to after their show, their special, their album is in a weird kind of place emotionally. Have you noticed that with your acts? There, it's not always celebratory.
No, I would say it's very rarely because it's not done
Yeah,
at
exactly.
that point, right?
Yeah.
Like, so you're like, okay, whatever I put out is out. Now I have to edit. Oh, fuck, I should have said this like this.
Yep.
And like I don't want to say it's almost like where they say a celebrity gets all this money and then they realize they're unhappy. But it's like
Right.
where you record your album, it's done, and then you're like, fuck, it ain't perfect.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly it. And it just can't be because there's just no such thing,
Yeah.
and you're feeling the pressure of what just happened and then what will happen with this. Because there's also like okay, I made this thing. I'm really happy with how this album and special turned out. Will people like it? Will people buy it? Will it get spins on Sirius? Will it, it's it's a really high pressure thing, and there's no way I think that you can be super relaxed about it, because you're also sometimes worried like, well, I heard that a certain way, but did they experience it the way that I did? Was I loose? Was I my it's yeah it's I was pretty annoying to be around post show after my special.
We know what we've been doing here that I think kind of works is we've been recording albums. Like Erica Rose did her Sad Women here and
Yeah.
recorded it Friday for both shows, Saturday for both shows.
Yeah.
So Saturday early, she was like, yes, I got it. Cool. Like I did it. I'm happy with it. And then that Saturday late was better than the
Right.
Saturday early.
Happens.
Like, so it was almost like I'm at peace. And then she went out and did her set. And like, that was most of the recording.
Yeah, it like my special is a good 50-50 of the two experiences, like of my two shows that I did, because the material I think was like a little tighter the first show, but I was looser the second show. So there's crowd work and there's acknowledging stuff going on. A dude fell asleep in the front row. Like, it was so funny. And it like, there was just stuff like that, where first show I probably would have been like, I don't know about that. But second show, you end up being kind of a better version of yourself once you feel kind of loose,
All right, Dustin. So for the last segment, again, thank you for your time, man. I'll try to get you out of here as soon as possible because, we're busy individuals. But we're going to get some notes from the producer. So we're going to get these questions. We'll answer them, and then we'll go ahead and skate. So Oh, what's a cool or interesting thing that you've done in a new city before a show?
A cool, interesting thing that you've done in a new city before the shows. You know,
Like, I think for me, I'd be
go
a
ahead.
weird comic and I wouldn't want to do shit before a show. But then I know people who go do like jet skiing or something and then come and do the show.
I've never jet skied before a show. I I'm very like, you know how it is, like you're not usually there. I mean, with the exception of these one-nighters, you're usually there for a minute. You kind of soak in the vibe, the feel of the city as the time goes on. And so usually by Friday, Saturday show, you have a lot more interesting things to say about that city because, when I was there for that week with Taylor, I was kind of projecting a bit of what I thought Portland was going through and feeling. But then by Wednesday, Thursday, I was like, oh, this is how everybody actually feels right now here in town. But I'm like a total road creature of habit. Like I don't do any fun, interesting things. I'm the most boring road hang. I'll do whatever like my if I'm with a headliner like that, I'll do what they want. That's part of the reason people bring me out is I'm super agreeable. But if it's just me,
Right.
I'm like coffee. I eat oatmeal because I love oatmeal. I'm 1,000 years old. I was like, where's the best oatmeal in town? They're like, I'm sorry, did you ask for oatmeal? You asked for oatmeal. I will say okay, here's one. One of the more interesting like things I ever did before a show. So when I go out with Nate loves to golf. Nate is a golfer. He plays like with PGA guys. He plays almost every day. And I had just kind of like started golfing and he's like, you're good, right? And I was like, I can play. Like, I know the rules. I know, I'm going to try not embarrass myself. He's like, okay, so we're playing Spokane Comedy Club. And he's like, we're going to go play this place called Circling Raven. And it's outside and it's in Idaho. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I looked up tee times or tee price. Like it was like $150 per round that I was like, oh, no, I can't be here. And he's paying and he's driving me out there and I was like, oh no, I'm going to be so bad. And he's paying for this. And he's going to be, because like in golf, like nobody really cares if you're good or bad, but they care if you're slow. And like and I was like, this is going to, and so I'm so nervous. And we go to the driving range and like, I'm a decent golfer, but I'm like missing the ball at the driving range. like, like I'm hacking it into the ground. Like it's as if I've never played golf before. Worse than that somehow. It was embarrassing. I was like, oh, this is going to be the worst. Because in your mind, you're like, oh, it's not that he's never going to invite me to golf again. It's that he's never going to invite me on the road again. Like, right. Oh, yeah, that guy who shot a 200 at Circling Raven. We go over to the putting green. I'm missing the green I'm missing the thing by like 15 feet. Like I'm hitting, like I'm shaking nervous at this point.
Right.
We get to the first hole. Out of some miracle, I hit a great drive. Second shot, I put it 10 feet within the hole. Third shot, I birdied the first hole. And then I was like, and it was like kind of like what you said with Erica, and it was like, okay, I can relax now. Because had that gone, I didn't play unbelievable, but I played, I played competent golf. And that was the worst. That could have easily been the worst pre-show thing I ever did. Because I would have been like, well, this is the end of my touring with Nate Bargatze.
Right. Then you're getting wasted at the show because you're depressed. You're like, fuck it all.
Yeah. It really spirals out of hand.
All right. And then for the next one, have you ever had something happen at a comedy club that made you question your life choices as a comic? Or did anything get close to breaking you?
That's funny.
So
yeah.
I mean, for me, there's been many nights where you're like, why the fuck am I working at a comedy club? I remember I caught a glass in the head because I was carrying this lady out and they were like throwing glasses at her because she was disrupting the show. So I caught a glass to the head. I'm bleeding out. I thought I was going to pass out. I get everything, handled. The show's over. Staff is good. I go to the hospital. It's daylight savings. So I get in at 1:58. They check me in. I sit down. It goes to 2, it goes back to 1. So they thought I was like, somehow I got mixed up. They didn't come see me until 2:10. So I'm sitting there by myself for an hour. The whole hour I was just sitting there thinking like, I could go manage an Applebee's, man. Like, this does not have to be this.
Oh man, I mean that could happen at Applebee's too.
But actually, you're probably right. That 2 for 20 ain't all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah, I mean, full disclosure, I have 100 of these stories. You question, you just go, what am I? Why? I mean, bad college gigs and, you know, just so many gigs. You're like, why did I take this? What am I doing here? You know, I've never, I've never fully lost my cool on stage. I've never blown up at somebody. I've actually only ever cussed on stage once because I got that mad at somebody, which is about as mad as I get, you know.
Right.
But I would, you know, I just this last week I did a bar hijack show that you're like, come on, man. Like I had a special on Amazon. I've been on Netflix with Kevin Hart. I got comedy. What am I doing? Why am I still doing this? And they're like, we'll give you $200. I'm like, fine. You know, like it's like, that's groceries. You know, I'm not above groceries in town. Oh, you know, you got to go have a bad 35, 40 minutes. And I walk into the show and you can't even really call it a show because it's a bunch of people at a bar. And then some guy in the corner on a mic and it's my friend. And I'm just watching him bomb, just like it's not even a bomb. It's because they're not even paying attention. It's almost like he's just talking in a corner, you know? And the only response I hear from anyone during his set was like, can we get this guy off the stage? Like, it wasn't even hostile. They're like requesting it. They're like, it would be great if we could just, you know, and I know this is in a comedy club, but, and like, the as they say that, the host gives him the light and he's like, hey, you're gonna go on a little early. And I'm like, do you need me to do more time? And he's like, well, that'd be great if you could. I'm like, I can't. Like, you can't make me do more time because the crowd doesn't want a show. And it was actually kind of one of those things where you go in those moments. Funny, I brought my wife because I'm like, well, this will be a fun night out. Stupid. I'm like, oh great, now you get to watch this. I was like, could you just go in there and eat guac and have a beer and just act like I'm not, just run up the bar tab, just, you know, make something of this night. And, but it was one of those things that you question, you're like, what am I doing here? And then I had a good set and I'm like, that's what I'm doing here. You know, like so it ended up being kind of a nice moment, but I was a pensive, you know, impossible to be around human for, you know, the good half an hour leading up to that.
I mean, I would say though that those experiences or those nights make good comics, right? Like I don't know anyone who I honestly respect as a comedian who's like, every set I've killed. You know what I mean? That's a person who has no idea what the fuck they're just murdered every set from day one. You're like, I don't even want to be around you. It's the people who are constantly worried about, are people liking me? Am I doing all right? Is this going okay? Why am I doing this? What is going on? Okay, I'll be here tomorrow.
Right. Yeah. We had a guy in our scene when we started. We called him the boy who cried crush. Like everything he said, crush. I'm like, I don't think you did. Yeah, I think you have a misunderstanding of what a crush is. And yeah, but I don't. You know, every person at every level I know has that. There's this great Venn diagram, right, where it says like, you know, it's like, you know, narcissism and crippling self-doubt, and in the middle is art. And that's exactly it, is you have a bit of the both.
Have you had any fond, and this will be the last one, and then we'll go ahead and let you go, but have you had any fond fake it till you make it moments from early on in your career that stick out to you?
Yeah, you know, I was like, you just kind of like, you're grasping for stuff early on. Like I started late. I was 27 when I started. I was 27. I had 2 kids. I was married. I am married, you know, like, I have 3 kids now. So I was in like the hurry, like, oh, I got to make this work. Like I have to get paid to do this. This can be a hobby for a while, but it has to show some, you know, some money. It's why I went on the road pretty early on in my career. There was definitely fake it till you make it stuff on the road where guys were, the booker would be like, can you open? I was like, yeah. Like, do you got 30? I was like, yeah, easy, and I'm like, I've done 30. That's what I meant. I was like, if you compile all of the material I've ever written and the crowd is pretty good, then I've got close to 30,
Oh.
And in those casino gigs, some of the early work that I did, you're not doing 30, you're doing a cold 30, which is you go up, you're lucky to get introduced. If that, that only happens about half the time. But, that's how you learn how to fill the time, and it's how you learn how to do your job, and it's how you learn how to just like, hey man, sometimes it's not going to go well, but you just got to do your time. You just got to sit up there and take it. But I was like, I was kind of the annoying guy early in this way in the mics where I was like, I had done like 10 mics and I was like, well, I better get a website and headshots, which I would never recommend to any open micer. But it was, I was in a different place. I was like, this has to make money, Right. I have to have people hire me, and give me money. It's not just about me getting booked at the Madhouse on the weekends. That is what it's about, but I also have to start doing birthday parties, and I have to start doing, these random gig salad gigs, and like I have to do this type of stuff early on,
Well, I mean, I think that almost helps, because if you're doing fake it till you make it, and you're on stage and you're faking it and you aren't gonna make it, you, I think, are screwed. That's it, right? If you get on stage, you're trembling and you're doing like the Papa Dot thing in 8 Mile, and you're just it's a wrap for you. But if you can get on stage, somehow fake it to get on stage, and then make it
while you're up there,
somehow you're doing 30. I think that almost builds you up and puts you in a better position.
I'd agree with that, and it makes you more comfortable with just all the different type crowds that you might see. You're like, oh man, I mean, I've been performing. I remember once I did this gig salad gig for a guy at his company party. It was at his house, and I was on one side of the pool and they were on the other side. I'm just bombing outside. They're like, what's happening right now? Like, all right, so George wanted to hire a comedian, so I guess I'll start, and then you bomb for a half an hour, and then you carry your speakers back to the car.
I will say that that's the one nice thing about the pandemic is everyone's doing these by Zoom now.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, those are terrible too, but do you know Brian Simpson? He's a comedian. He's great. Very funny.
I think so.
Yeah, he's great. He and I talked on the phone the other day, and I was like, oh, people are still learning how to talk to each other, not on Zoom. Like, our pauses were too long. Because, on Zoom, we've done it a couple times where you talk and, like, you're doing nonverbals. Like, you're kind of, you're, like, letting me know that you hear me and you're acknowledging me, but you can't say anything or the microphone's going to pick you up. That doesn't happen in real conversations. We're allowed to go, yeah, It felt weird. I was like, we're learning how to talk.
I'm going to start doing that to people in real life. That's going to be my new real life bit. I'll just Zoom them in real life. Well, Dustin, do you have anything people can go check out, aside from your special, or where should people go fuck with you and check you out?
I mean, everything that you might be into would be on my website. So if you're a social media person, you're like, I want to follow this guy on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. There's links all from my website. If you want to check out the album, it's on Spotify. Links from the website. If you want to watch it, then you can do that on Amazon, and links from the website. It's all upcoming shows, tour dates. It's all on DustinNickerson.com.
And then get your tickets now. There's 30 left, or there's 70 left in Portland? Stop messing around, people.
Hey, I'll take it. That's a long ways away. I mean, it's so funny.
That's great. I think you have more tickets sold than headliners doing weekends in a month.
Yeah, well, you don't need to crap on Andrew Rivers like that. You don't need to.
Oh man. Well, anyway,
that was just for you. That was a joke just for me and you. I love Andrew. I'm a great friend.
I love that dude. I can't believe how many dry bar reviews he has. It still blows me away.
I know. I'm doing dry bar next month, because why not at this point?
Yeah, why not? All right.